Hello everyone, welcome to Synthesis IAS Academy, a place where blend of ideas take place. About me, I am Sandeep Bhushan and my credentials are I have 10 years of teaching experience for civil services. I teach international relations and internal security and the daily news analysis of the Hindu newspaper as well as the in-depth analysis of the editorials and articles. So this session will certainly help you to crack prelims and mains examinations because I would be emphasizing throughout my lecture the keywords and the key phrases, and these keywords and the key phrases are the key for you to crack prelims and mains examinations or have an edge over others in regards to scoring higher marks in prelims or else even in mains examination, and thereby this session will be useful for you to guide you or to help you to crack prelims and mains both for 2020 as well as 2021. And the topic for today, what we would be focusing is the Foreign Contribution Regulations Act, FCRA. So we would be focusing in regards to Foreign Contribution Regulations Act in depth so that it will be useful for you from UPSC perspective both for prelims as well as mains examination. And before we get into the in-depth of the FCRA, that is Foreign Contribution Regulations Act, let us look at the subtopics which I would be focusing. So I would be focusing on the origin of the FCRA and the need, what was the need for the FCRA, and later on were there any kind of major amendments to the FCRA, that is Foreign Contribution Regulations Act, and we will also focus on the new FCRA. If not, the other ways how to receive the foreign fund into India, and we will also focus on whether there were any suspensions or cancellations of the organizations in the past, and the focus would be also in regards to institutionalizing double standards and then the way forward. So this will be a very useful information for you all as a civil servant aspirants, mostly in regards to the mains point of view. So do listen this topic till the end of this session so that you will be benefited maximum by the topic for today, that is Foreign Contribution Regulations Act. So now we will get into the topic, that is the origin of the Foreign Contribution Regulations Act. So if we get into the origin, the original Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, that is FCRA, was enacted in the year 1976 during the emergency period, that is at the Indira Gandhi led government, and this FCRA was enacted during the emergency period to, why? Because to regulate the foreign contributions which were provided by certain individuals or associations to NGOs and others within India. So the money which was coming from certain individuals or associations to the NGOs and others within India during the emergency period, that is in the year 1976, the original FCRA was enacted. So this is the origin, that it was in the year 1976 the FCRA has come into the existence, or it has been enacted, and it was passed in 1976 in conjunction. So while we are looking at the FCRA 1976, we will also focus another act of 1973. So this act of FCRA Act of 1976 was in conjunction, was in coordination with the previous other laws, such as the main important is Foreign Exchange Regulations Act. So that is FERA, Foreign Exchange Regulation Act 1973 was part of it, and it was in conjunction with FERA in 1976. The FCRA Act has come into existence, and the main intention of this act was to prohibit electoral candidates or political parties judges, MPs, and even cartoonists. Please look at this. Even cartoonists were included, that they be prohibited from accepting the foreign contribution. So the main intention here, if you look at, okay, the others, that is the electoral candidates, political parties, judges, MPs, and cartoonists. Why? Because I said that it was during the emergency period. So during the emergency period, in the newspaper, if any cartoonists were trying to project the way the government was actually dealing in regards to the emergency with the people or to the country, so that could also be taken into consideration. So even the cartoonists were included in the original FCRA. In fact, there were there were few deficiencies which were part of the 1976 FCRA Act, and thereby they have proposed a fresh law, so that they have changed or amended the word from regulation to prohibition. Regulation to prohibition, that is in regards to the acceptance and utilization of the foreign contributions. So the origin which has started was in the year 1976 during the emergency period, along with the conjunction of the FERA, that is Foreign Exchange Regulation Act 1973. And now we will focus at the need for FCRA. What was the need for FCRA? So as a civil servant aspirant, you need to have this analytical point of view wherein you can add it as a short notes in your mains examination, So it was the Cold War era wherein the Soviets and Americans were trying to meddle the post-colonial nations. Why? To secure their strategic interest in the post-colonial nations. So during the Cold War era, so when there was an suspicious of the foreign hands stoking into the domestic turbulence because of the Cold War era, or else during the Cold War era wherein the foreign hands would be having a suspicious in disturbing or creating the domestic turbulence. So thereby the FCRA was aimed at preventing the political parties from accepting the contribution from the foreign sources, that is especially from the Soviets and the Americans, so that the domestic turbulence would not be created. And the main justification which was given, the ostensible justification given for the law, that is FCRA, to be enacted was to curb the foreign interference in domestic politics. So this is very, very useful information. The main intention or the need for the FCRA, no doubt it is to curb the foreign funds, but the main intention or ostensible justification was to curb the foreign interference in the domestic politics in the post-colonial nation or during the Cold War era. And now we will focus on the major amendments to the FCRA of 1976. So the 1976 Foreign Contribution Regulation Act was majorly modified in the year 2010, and it has come into force on May 1st, 2011. So if we focus the others also which were been part of the amendments to the 1976 Act and also majorly in the year 2010, that is FCRA 2010. If we focus that, so in the year 2015, the Ministry of Home Affairs have come up with the new rules for NGOs. They have come up with the new rules for NGOs. Why? So that the NGOs will give, or they should have an undertakings of acceptance of the foreign funds, so that the foreign funds which are getting through the NGOs into India, that money should not affect the sovereignty and integrity of India, or it should not impact any friendly relations from where the origin of the foreign fund are getting into India, so that the friendly relations should not be impacted with that foreign state, so that the harmony or the cordial relations with the foreign countries from where the foreign funds are being diverted or been into India, getting into India, the friendly relations should not be hampered. So the main was it should not impact the sovereignty and integrity of India, and also it should not impact negatively the friendly relations with the foreign states. So it was in the year 2015 and the major modification in the year 2010. And there were also a modification or amendment in the year 2017 by the Ministry of Home Affairs, and that was through the finance bill route. This is again a keyword which you need to focus, that it will be useful for you while you are mentioning in the short notes for the mains examinations. The amendments, so through the finance bill route, which was amended the 1976, repealed FCRA. So they have come up with the law which has paved the way. This is very crucial information for you all as a civil servant aspirants, because when it has gone paving the way for political parties. So here now, because if you look at the original 1976, during the Indira Gandhi led government, during the emergency period, it was mostly on the electoral candidates and political parties, both. Now it has paved the way. Look at it, in 2017 the Ministry of Home Affairs have amended through the finance bill route that it has paved the way for political parties to receive. So this is the main amendment, wherein by then the political parties started receiving the funds from the Indian subsidiary of a foreign company. Here you need to understand this key phrase. They started, political parties started receiving the foreign funds from the Indian subsidiary of a foreign company, or a foreign company in which India holds 50% or more shares. Please do understand the importance of this. Do not get confused that in the year 2017 through the finance bill, it was wherein the political parties can receive the funds from the Indian subsidiary of a foreign company, Indian subsidiary of a foreign company or a foreign company, wherein in that company India holds 50% or greater than 50% share. So that was the amendment in the 2013 through the finance bill route. And in the year 2019, the central government has issued directions under section 46 of the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act 2010 to all the NGOs and associations, that the NGOs or association should open their designated foreign contribution account. So they should have the designated foreign contribution accounts as well as utilization accounts. So this is the major amendment in the year 2019. This is the latest one, that the NGOs or any associations which they would receive foreign contribution or funds, they should open their designated foreign contribution accounts and the utilization accounts in banks in India, compliant with the provision of the public financial management system. So they should be in compliance with the public financial management system, and this keyword is also useful for preliminary examination from UPSC perspective point of view. So they should open a designated foreign contribution account and utilization account in banks in compliance with the provision of which among the following? It is Public Financial Management System, PFMS. And later on, an FCRA license was made mandatory for the NGOs to receive the foreign funds. So what was the mandatory one which was made to the NGOs to receive funds? They should have a license, and they should definitely, once it is expired, they should renew the license. So license is the one which is the keyword here for the NGOs to receive the foreign funds. And the term NGO is described as it that is neither part of the government nor a conventional for profit business organization. Sorry. And now we will focus at the new FCRA. So the 1976 and 2010 Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. As I said, initially it was in the year 1976, and the major amendments were being taken up in the year 2010. So we will look at what were the major amendments later on, again 2015 and then 2017 and 2019. So now we are focusing the new FCRA. So look at it. We have looked at the origin. We have also looked at the way amendments have taken place, and then now we are looking at the new FCRA. So definitely, if we conclude that all the major amendments which have taken place, we can conclude it in three changes or three amendments. Three amendments, which the new act is now more stringent than the old act. Please do understand, the new act now is more stringent in regards to the foreign funds coming into India through the NGOs or any association. We will look at the what are the three major changes. So the firstly, the earlier or the previous law was permanent. So once they register, so it is a permanent one. So the FCRA registration was a permanent under the earlier law, but in regards to the new one, the registration will expire every 5 years, and after 5 years, that is, they have to renew it. The license has to be renewed. And now when we are talking about, it is not permanent, but it will be expired after 5 years and they have to renew it. This very clearly states that it is giving the state a whip. It is giving a state a whip that it will bring errant organization to the yield. That means the one who are involved in the money laundering or the money which is getting into India, which would be creating a problem to the sovereignty and the integrity of India and the friendly relations to the foreign countries, the country would have a whip on those kind of organizations which would create problem to the sovereignty, integrity and the friendly relations. And the second one, the major changes is it has put a restrictions of 50% on the proportion of the foreign funds, that 50% of the fund which gets into India could be used for the administrative expenses. So this is the keyword here. 50% should be used for the administrative expenses, thereby allowing, what will happen by making sure that 50% is or should be used for the administrative expenses, the government will have a control on the civil society organization, that how the civil society organizations or the NGOs or the associations are actually spending the money which is getting into India, that is the foreign funds. So that is a major second amendment in regards to the civil society organization. So this is the keyword here. Civil society organization is the keyword. Now we will focus at the third amendment, major amendment. So the important and the third is that there is a distinction between the 1976 law and then that is the new amendments or the 2010 amendment, 15 and 17 and 19 amendments to the FCRA 2010 Act. That is, there is a major, a stage is being shifting from the focus to organizations of political nature. So earlier it was political parties. Please do understand this. This is very, very crucial information that from UPSC mains perspective point of view, you are understanding this. The main important distinction between the 76 FCRA law and then FCRA 2010 is, in 1976 it was, the word term was political parties. Now it is organization of political nature. Look at this change of the words or the keyword, organization of political nature. Earlier it was political parties. So we will look at what constitutes the organization of political nature. What constitute? Why? Because they wanted to have, the government wanted to control how the money is being spent in India, whether it is impacting the sovereignty, integrity, internal security, whether it is being used as a money laundering, or the friendly relations would be disturbed. So if you look at it, it is part, I mean, the list of the organizations of political nature which is been now shifting focus in the new law from the political parties to organizations of political nature is students union or trade unions, workers unions, youth forums, women's wing of any political party, farmers organizations, youth organization based on caste, community, religion, language, or any organization which habitually engages. This is very, very important. So all these organization which, or any organization which habitually engages itself in employing common method of political action like any kind of bunds or hartals or rasta roko, rail roko or jail burrow in support of public causes. So look at it, the government is trying to or take the control of any situation wherein these organizations or habitual engagement of these employs commonly methods of political actions like Band, Hartal, Rasta Roko or Rail Roko or Jail Boro will not be funded. Please do understand, will not be funded by the foreign funds. By the foreign funds. So now you try to get into the main or the ostensible justification. Now I'll take back you to that point. So here I have said the need for FCA. The ostensible justification given for the law was to curb the foreign interference in the domestic politics. Now you will have a perfect understanding of FCRA or analysis, complete analysis of FCRA. The ostensible justification given for the law of FCRA Act 2010 is to curb foreign interference in domestic politics. And now we will look at various other ways how the foreign funds can be getting into India, or India can receive the foreign funds, not just FCRA but other means. That is, they can just apply and a specific amount from a specific donor for specific activity or project. So for various specific activities or projects, a specific amount from a specific donor can be brought, I mean, can get into India by just applying a prior permission. Other ways, we are talking about other ways, but the associations, the one from where the money is coming, specific amount is being getting into India for specific activity or project, they should be registered under the status of, this is again important for prelims point of view, that is the keywords, that is under Societies Registration Act 1860, under the India's Trust Act 1882, or Section 25 of Companies Act 1956. So these three statutes, the association should register, only then the money can get into India. So not only from through FCRA, but the money can get into India from foreign or other countries through the Societies Registration Act 1860, Indian Trust Act 1882, Section 25 of Companies Act 1956. So now we will come to the next side heading, that is the suspensions of organization. So if there is any kind of money laundering or threat to the internal security or national security, or there is the money is creating some kind of ripples to the sovereignty and integrity and also the friendly relation of the foreign countries, so the Ministry of Home Affairs or the central government do have the authority to cancel or suspend the organizations wherein the foreign fund is getting into India. So the Ministry of Home Affairs in 2011 have cancelled 20,664 associations. Why? because they have violated the misutilization. So this is important. Misutilization is a key word. So they have misutilized the foreign contribution, or they have not submitted the mandatory annual returns. So they have to submit the annual returns. And the other one is that why they have cancelled is, the third one is diversion of foreign funds for other purpose. So for what purpose, the specific purpose or specific activity or the specific project the money is getting into India, it should be used only for that purpose. If it is being diverted for other purpose, so then again the suspension, the cancellation of the registration of the organizations can be taken up by the MHA. That is the power of the FCRA Act 2010. And in 2017, the MHA has also suspended the Public Health Foundation of India. This is the keyword. This is another organization called as Public Health Foundation of India, which is India's largest public health advisory group. So it is the largest public health advocacy groups, which it has used the foreign funds. So it has used the foreign funds to lobby the parliamentarians on what? On tobacco control activities in the year 2017. That is why MHA has suspended the registration of the Public Health Foundation of India. And in 2017, the Ministry of Home Affairs had declined to renew. So there is the registration would be not permanent, which was earlier in the 1976, but in 2010 and later on it is only for 5 years, and every 5 years they have to renew it. And Home Ministry has declined to renew few of the FCRA licenses, especially in regards to the two NGOs, that is they were receiving funds from Bloomberg Philanthropies, which is founded by US billionaire Michael Bloomberg. And the government has also cracked down on foreign donors, such as from US based, example, Compassion International, Ford Foundation, World Movement for Democracy, Open Society Foundations, and National Endowment for Democracy. So look at it, the foreign donors, especially all of them are from the US based. So the government has also cracked down on the associations from where the foreign funds were getting into India. And there were various concerns which have been raised in regards to the US based evangelical donors, that is in regards to the Seventh-day Adventist Church and Baptist Church, in regards to the way they had their association with the Indian NGOs companies. And there were other 4 groups which were suspended by the Ministry of Home Affairs on September 6, 2020. That is Acrosulik Northwestern Gosner Evangelical in Jharkhand. So this is Acrosuculus Northwestern Gosner Evangelical in Jharkhand. The second one is Evangelical Churches Association in Manipur. Third one is Northern Evangelical Lutheran Church in Jharkhand again, and New Life Fellowship Association, which is in Mumbai. So what is that you need to focus here for UPSC perspective from prelims point of view is that there could be a possibility that the 4 groups would be given and then match the following in regards to in which state they were actually functioning. So Acrosuculus Northwestern Gosner Evangelical in Jharkhand, Evangelical Churches Association in Manipur, Northern Evangelical Lutheran Church in Jharkhand, New Life Fellowship Association in Mumbai. So as on September 11, 2020, around 50,000, that is 49,843 FCRA registered associations are in India. And we will now focus on the institutionalizing double standard. So we will look at how FCRA is really focusing on the one which is really necessary, or it is having a double standard. We will look at it. The political class has no qualms. Qualms in the sense has no worry or fear taking money from the foreign sources, because as per the amended FCRA, which has left past any kind of violations. that has opened the doors for all the political parties to accept foreign funding. Please do look at this, focus on this. Now the political parties or political class do not have any fear or worry in accepting the foreign funds from the foreign sources, because it has opened the doors. The amendments to the FCRA has opened the doors for the political parties to accept the foreign fundings, which the Indian businesses to have access to the foreign capital. But it is now anxious to prevent whom? Not the political class, but to prevent the civil society organization. So now NGOs or the civil society organization is the one which is at the receiving, and these civil society organizations which are accessing the foreign funds, and they would be accessing the foreign funds, and there might be few of the civil society organizations or NGOs might be questioning the policies of the government of the day, might be questioning the policies in a democratic battle. Why? So that they wanted to protect the constitutional rights and entitlements of the citizens in India. So if there are any kind of such civil society organizations, so now this amended FCRA will definitely have an open access by the government or the Ministry of Home Affairs to prevent such kind of civil society organizations to cancel, suspend, or to not to review them. And we have seen the other one is UN Special Rapporteur, that is the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association, has undertook the FCRA 2010 as a legal analysis. So the UN Special Rapporteur on the rights to freedom of peaceful assembly and association is taking FCRA as a legal analysis, because it says that the right to freedom of association, it says that the right to freedom of association is incorporated under what? Under International Covenant Civil and Political Rights, wherein India is a signatory or a party to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and this is very important keyword while you are preparing short notes for your mains examination in regards to the FCRA. So the right to freedom of association, which is part of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and which is India is a signatory of it, and having access to any kind of these resources, particularly foreign funding, is definitely a part of right to freedom of association. That is what it says. The right to freedom of association is incorporated in the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. That is why I said this is the useful keyword, important keyword for you while you are preparing short notes for the mains examination. And accessing to the foreign fund is part of the right to freedom of association, wherein India is a signatory to the International Covenant on Civil Political Rights, which the right to freedom of association is incorporated into the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And the report also talks about the restrictions which the Government of India or the Ministry of Home Affairs onto the civil society organizations and the NGOs. The restrictions made are on the name of the public interest and economic interest, that is sovereignty or integrity, or in regards to the money laundering or national security. So public interest on economic interest. The report says that the government is using this public interest and economic interest. They are invoking these two keywords under the FCRA rules, and it fails the test of legitimate restrictions. So there can be restrictions, what the report says is, but the legitimate restriction, that is freedom of association, is definitely not part of the FCRA rules, which is failing the test. By this, the report also says that the state has excessive discretionary powers to apply the provisions on any arbitrary manner on the foreign funds which are entering into India. Besides that, the right to freedom of association, as we said, it is part of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. It is also part of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So, Universal Declaration of Human Rights is that we can see the right to freedom of association is also part of it. So, definitely, when it is part of it, the Article 20 of it, so definitely it is in violation of the rights, also constitutes a human rights violation. So there is definitely a criticism in regards to the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act 2010, which is in India. So we have looked at the double standard, that is criticism. Fine, that is the challenges, and now we will focus on the way forward. So definitely we cannot say that the money is coming or getting into India, the foreign funds getting into India, and then it is utilized completely for the purpose which it is supposed to be used. No, we can definitely say that there are few NGOs which might be into corrupt. There could be few unscrupulous NGOs which are receiving the funds, and then it is channeling, being, it could be channeled various forms as part of the money laundering. So definitely NGO funding needs to be regulated, even though there is criticism, but it has to be regulated. The money or the foreign funds which are serving as a conduit for the corrupt NGOs or unscrupulous NGOs, or the money laundering which is taking place, that has to be regulated, and it is the need of the hour, and that has to be done in a better way. That has to be done in a better way. So there was a task force which was set up in way back in the year 2009. That is, at a national level, it was set up as a self-regulatory agency called as the National Accreditation Council of India, NACI. National Accreditation Council of India, and that will monitor and accredit the civil society organization, which will monitor and accredit the civil society organization which can receive the foreign funds and use it for the purpose the way it has to be used in. And definitely the NACI is an independent and a statutory body which is in lines with the Bar Council. But what is the one which is really worrying is it has been never heard. That means the task force has submitted its report to the Planning Commission way back in 2010. Now you do not have the Planning Commission, but the Niti Ayog. Fine, but it never heard of it again. Instead of that, we have this September 2010 more aggressive FCRA. So we need to have a regulation, but it has to be in a better way. It has to be a better way, and probably like a self-regulating agency which is at the national level, that is called as NACI, the National Accreditation Council of India. So this is the way forward. And now there is a question for you all in regards to the mains. So the question is that it is time to repeal the FCRA. It is time to repeal the FCRA and revive the idea of an autonomous self-regulatory agency for civil society organization. The way we were talking about the national task force which has been created way back in 2009, that is National Accreditation Council of India, which would monitor and accredit the civil society. So now after almost a decade, 2009 and now 2020, more than a decade, whether it is time to repeal the FCRA and revive the idea of an autonomous self-regulatory agency for civil society organization. And this, you critically analyze it. You critically analyze it and then make sure that you write an answer. So it could be a probable question in regards to the mains examination pertaining to the civil society organizations or NGOs. So FCRA versus NGOs or civil society organizations. This is the main conclusion of it. So definitely I hope this was an informative, knowledgeable session for you all, so that you had a very basic understanding right from various subtopics of FCRA, which was and which will be very useful for prelims as well as mains examinations. So a big thank you to all and a good luck for your examinations. And I would say, before you sign off, do like the video, share the video and subscribe the channel, that is Synthesis IAS Academy, a place where blend of ideas takes place. And I would come up again tomorrow with a new topic which will be certainly useful for you all, that is to all the civil servant aspirants for prelims as well as mains examinations. Thank you. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow once again with a new topic.